Hey, folks, I always have the heavy hitters come to the show. And I met this one person at the Black and White Ball at the Enoch Pratt Library. And you're always trying to have a good time and hang out. But a mutual friend of ours was like, you got to have her on the show. And I'm like, okay, I hear that. I hear it 100 times. Cool. Aaron, you really got to have her on the show. She does amazing things. She saves lives. I'm like, okay, saves lives. All right, let's talk a little bit more further. And so I was like, all right, we're going to make this happen. So we have the good doctor on. And it's going to be, we're talking about life, the journey, how to becoming a doctor, and things you see or COVID and whatnot. So Dr. Sharon Board, right?
That's right.
We'll be next after these messages.
We made a pledge to do what's best for the health of our communities, and we continue to deliver on it every day for every one of our members. With access to a network of over 1 million providers, rewards for living healthy, and more care options than ever, we are Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we are changing healthcare for all that we serve. At Care First, it's not just our name, it's our promise.
Welcome to the NoPixAfterDark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. I told you folks, coming up to heavy hitters. We got the good Dr. Sharon. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. It's a beautiful day in Baltimore.
It is. That's why I got the polo, and it's beautiful
Nice out, yes.
Thank you for taking time to hang out with me. I know you were one of the busiest people in Baltimore. Thank you so much for your time.
That is potentially true. I'm pretty busy, but I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So let's talk about you. You're a doctor. Tell people a little bit about your background. What do you do?
Yeah. I am an emergency medicine doctor, and I work in the emergency department, and I work for Hopkins. So when I work for Hopkins, I have a couple of different roles. So part of it is that I work in the emergency department and I see patients clinically, and that's about 50% of my job. And the other part of my job is that I get to shape young minds, and I do a lot of teaching within the School of Medicine for both emergency medicine, and then also I run a course for like students who are graduating. So I do a little bit of both of those things, and then I dabble a little bit in research as well. So kind of do all of those things in my day-to-day, and it definitely does keep me busy. Part of being an emergency medicine doctor is that your schedule is kind of crazy, particularly when you're working clinical hours. Most people probably know the emergency department never ever closes, right?
Never.
There's someone there all hours of the day, all of the holidays, the nights, the weekends. And that responsibility falls on all of us who work in the ED.
So what made you? Okay, before we go back, are you from Maryland? Where are you from?
I am not from Maryland.
Okay.
I am from New York. I grew up on Long Island, not New York City, but a suburb of New York.
Okay.
And very much had like a middle class upbringing. My dad worked as an engineer for the New York City Transit Authority for a majority of his time. And did a little bit of like nuclear engineering initially in his career, and then did a lot of mechanical engineering. And my mom is like a consummate like salesperson and dabbled in different sales jobs along the way as well. And she oftentimes would work part-time, so she could be home for us, for me and my brother. My older brother actually also happens to be a physician.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mom thinks she's like a doctor by default because my older brother is a doctor too. So
I love it. So you're from, so I went to school up in Syracuse. We used to call Long Island Strong Island.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Strong Island. Yeah.
I had a lot of friends from Syosset and Huntington and down that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I grew up in Massapequa, and everyone thinks Massapequa, you think like the really swanky Massapequa by like the water, where the Baldwin brothers grew up, and Jerry Seinfeld is from there, and all of these famous people. I actually grew up in North Massapequa, which is about like 20 minutes from the water, the less fancy part of Massapequa.
But it's still nice, out there,
Yes. One of the best things about Long Island is the proximity to the water and to the beach, and the beaches there are really lovely.
And where did you go to college? Like, where did you go to undergrad? We're trying to get that journey, how we got here.
Absolutely. I went to college at University of Delaware. Go Blue Hens.
Okay. All right, good shout out there. That's a nice plug.
Yeah. When I was thinking about where I wanted to go to school, I wanted to be not too far away from home, but also not too close. So it's about 3 hours away, and they had a good like science program there, and I knew I wanted to major in something science-y. And then I applied to medical school straight from college, which is a little more unusual nowadays. Back then, I graduated medical school in 2004, and back then it was like a much more common path that people would go straight from college into medical school or into graduate school. Now I think people take a little bit more time off to sort of explore life a little bit. But I applied right away, and I actually didn't get a ton of interviews or really any offers. I was put on the wait list for one school, George Washington University, and I actually got into medical school 2 weeks before it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you were at Foggy Bottom.
Yes, in Foggy Bottom.
Yes. So a little small tip. That was my second choice college.
Oh, okay.
For undergrad. I fell in love with GW.
Yeah.
Only reason I didn't go there because I wanted like a major university with sports.
Yeah.
And they didn't have it. I wanted a campus.
Yeah.
And it was city.
Totally.
So
yeah. It's definitely like right in the middle of DC, and not a traditional college campus.
No.
But it was a great place to go to medical school. So I got in 2 weeks.
It's a little bit different from medical school. You're more serious at that point. You're not.
Well, not that. Like, your goal is to like sometimes it's better to be in a city because you see like a variety of illnesses and so being in a metropolitan area is sometimes helpful for medical school. I got in 2 weeks before. I lived in a hotel for I think like a week or so, and then I sublet an apartment from like a family friend, and then my apartment was
ready. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But it was meant to be though.
Yeah, it worked out great. Whenever something like that happens, in medicine we call imposter syndrome. I think it's a common term, but basically, I spent a lot of the beginning of medical school kind of feeling like I wasn't as good as my classmates or wasn't as deserving to be there because I got in late and off the wait list. Mm-hmm. And then I did really well in medical school and I graduated top of my class. And I think probably I studied extra hard because of my circumstances. So
I like that. So then after medical school, where did you do your residency? Did you stay in DC or?
I did not. I went to Boston for residency.
Oh, you went all around. So you were hitting all the major cities.
I have traveled the East Coast.
Yes, definitely. I see it.
And I went to Boston Medical Center in Boston, which another shout out to an amazing place to train. Boston Medical Center is an incredible hospital serving the community around it, and has really been at like the forefront of treating patients with like opioid use disorder and substance use disorders for many years. Like they are way ahead of their time when it comes to all of that stuff, and we're really very instrumental in kind of creating a culture within emergency medicine in particular, but then also within medicine, like it's grown to all of medicine, and had a great training there. Boston Medical Center is one of the best places to train in Boston for emergency medicine because we have so many, we're like known for being the trauma center there, even though there's the powerhouses of like MGH and, the Harvard affiliated hospitals. We're really the place where a lot of the trauma would go, kind of based a little bit on location within the city, but also a lot of the paramedics at that time, and I suspect it stayed the same, were very much like, this is where we want to bring our sickest traumas because we're just so experienced. The more you do it, the more experience you have and the better care you can give to patients. So yeah, it was really great training with wonderful people. Both in my residency class and other residency classes, and then also faculty, many of whom still work there.
Did you always want to do ER? Like, was that where you wanted to go? Or because I had a doctor on who does, he was reconstruction, but he does the lips
like
and
plastic surgery.
He
stuff.
does,
Yeah.
And he was like, he fell into it. Like he didn't know he wanted to do it. But is that something like did you fall into that?
Yeah. So I did not know I wanted to do emergency medicine. Little known facts, again, for the listeners, that emergency medicine is a pretty young specialty, actually. It started in the 1980s. as a specialty.
Oh, okay.
We're like in the world of medicine with
Yeah.
internal medicine and surgery being around for years and years and years. Emergency medicine is really a baby specialty.
I got you. I got you on that.
And still in medical schools, it's not something everyone gets exposed to. It's not a required rotation everywhere. And where I did medical school, it was not a required rotation. It was an elective rotation. And originally I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. And when I entered medical school, and then I did my pediatrics rotation, and I did not really enjoy it. I found outpatient peds to be dull. And I mean, shout out to all the pediatricians out there who do amazing work. I think it's a very meaningful and great specialty, but it just wasn't for me. I thought a little bit about inpatient pediatrics, but I thought that was going to be like very challenging emotionally. And then I thought about a whole bunch of other things. I thought about doing internal medicine. And I thought about doing surgery a little bit. There was a female surgeon who I had worked with as a student who was a great role model. At that time, there weren't a lot of women surgeons, female surgeons. So I briefly considered that. And then I did my emergency medicine rotation, and it's really kind of the best of all the worlds because we think about medicine things, we think about surgery things, we think about OBGYN things and women's health matters. And we also, like, one of the big hallmarks of our job, if you've ever been to the emergency department, is our goal is to make people feel safe and like well cared for in a quick way. So it's not like someone comes to see me and we have a relationship and I know their kids, or, we have to, it's oftentimes people's worst days and, they're not feeling well, they feel sick, their family member is sick, and we have to be able to figure out what's going on and also gain the trust of that individual and their family pretty quickly. I felt like that was something that I would be able to do, and that suited my personality well.
You want a fast pace.
And I think
because no day is the same.
No day is the same. No day is the same. Yeah. Wow.
So how did we end up in beautiful Charm City?
So my husband is actually from Baltimore.
Okay.
He's born and raised in Pikesville.
I got you.
And when we were looking for places to go after residency, we thought about going to New York, and then also thought about coming to Baltimore. And I got offered a job at Hopkins, and it's kind of hard to turn down. And he also, Long Island is a special place.
It is.
In a lot of good ways, but in some challenging ways.
Yes, it's very special.
And my husband is not a Long Islander, and I think that
noted. You don't have to say anymore. I went to school with a lot of Long Island kids. And
I think he would not have been happy there. And also moving here, like in New York, is really just mainly my parents. And in Baltimore were his parents and some more extended family, some of whom have dispersed now, but his sister lives here as well. And so it's been really nice kind of creating community here. And then also, my kids and their first cousins get to see each other a bit, which is nice to have that relationship.
I love it. I love that. I love that story. So, folks, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about coming to Baltimore, being in the ER, some of the wildest stories in the ER, and learn about her travels of running like Forrest Gump all across the world, because she's a marathon runner. Be right back, folks.
When you give to United Way, your gift could be the first spark of something bigger. It can help someone find, interview for, and get hired for a job, and provide follow-up services for success. It can break down educational barriers and give that extra help to a struggling student with in-school support programs. Give today. Spark something bigger.
Are you or someone you love in need of mental health support? For All Seasons is now offering same-day therapy appointments with no wait list. Through the For All Seasons Open Access program, you can walk in for mental health services and begin therapy in the same visit. For All Seasons accepts all insurances and provides financial assistance if you need it. For therapy, psychiatry, or victim support, we have appointments available today. Call For All Seasons 410-822-1222 1018.
Folks, we're back with Dr. Sharon, and we were talking off camera, and she was like, hey, we gotta correct some things. I'm like, let's do it. So I was saying ER room, but the correct terminology, please. Let's start right off the top.
So it's one of the pet peeves of emergency medicine doctors and people who work in the emergency department that we are not a room anymore. So when emergency rooms started out, they were quite literally a room. So it was a room you would go to, and there would be like curtains, and everyone would be together in the room. But since the 80s and people started doing more specific emergency medicine training, we have really fought hard as a specialty to get a seat at the table with the powerhouses like internal medicine and surgery and, and OBGYN care. So we actually prefer to be called the emergency department as opposed to the emergency room.
Okay.
Just as an FYI, if you want to sound extra savvy amongst your medical friends, that's the way to be.
That's going to be a new topic at happy hour. Like, have you been to the emergency division? Have you been there? Have you not? It's not the
There you
ER.
go.
It's not the ER anymore. Sorry.
It's not the ER anymore.
So thank you. I'm glad we get the off because I'm sitting there like, oh, okay. I almost Googled it myself now, but thank you for explaining that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's one of those small things.
No, but we got to stand correct and make sure if it's a medical professional watching, she knows better not to say that. I don't want you to get in trouble.
There you go.
Call it out. So
there you go.
let's talk about the craziest thing you've ever seen.
Oh,
like what's something that like you could talk about that you're like, what just happened here? like a wild experience where it's like, what happened in this room?
Yeah. So this is probably another little known fact about, I think particularly people who work in the emergency department. This is a question that we all kind of hate.
Okay. It's good. Because it's like the I don't know. Go ahead.
I'll tell you why. I feel like when people ask me this question, right, they want me to tell them something like someone put a thing up their butt or like.
No, I wasn't thinking about that. No.
Or something random like that.
No.
No, that's.
I wasn't thinking. I was thinking more
like
like
the cocktail party conversation.
Yeah,
that's what people want to know.
Like a finger that was over here somewhere. Like something kind of gross. Not like that. Nothing like that. Yes.
I mean, we definitely see all sorts of like crazy trauma injuries with like people with like open fractures, which is when the bone is exposed. We definitely see that quite a bit. A lot of the things that I see that are like, oh my God, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen would make actually really horrible podcasts / cocktail party conversation because oftentimes they're tragic and or medically complex or interesting. Where if like I was talking with another physician, we'd be like, oh my goodness, that's so interesting. But, we definitely do see people with all sorts of crazy injuries. I'll put in a little plug here for public safety, like wear your helmet, definitely on your bike, definitely on your motorcycle, wear your proper protective gear. Because I tell my kids all the time, you only get one brain and you want to protect your head. So helmets are so, so, so important. And I'm standing on a preventative, platform here and just saying definitely because we see all sorts of tragic and crazy things for people with organs not where they're supposed to be.
It's wild because I'm an 80s baby, 80s, 90s baby, and I used to ride a bike. I didn't wear helmets.
Yeah. Oh, same.
I didn't wear helmets. I was like, hey, I probably was concussed many times and didn't know.
Yeah.
But now everybody's wearing
you also were probably driven home from the hospital on your mom's lap in the front seat of the car,
most
right?
Likely, yes.
So it's like there's a lot that's changed over the years with car seats and what we know about safety, right? And seat belts and all of that stuff. But absolutely, we all grew up riding our bikes without helmets. Right. And I remember a particular time that my neighbor flipped over her handles and had a big concussion and whatnot. So yeah.
Have you ever had a time when you were at a jumping action, but you were off work?
Yes. Yeah, particularly.
How was that? Like how was that moment when you're like, or was it like did it turn on right away, or were you kind of like, I see this, let me process this, does this make sense, or like did you flip on like, this is what I do? I
can flip pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. I for simple things, like I am my neighbors and just on the way over here, my friend's kid had surgery and She sent me a picture of the x-ray and she's like, why is that one screw there? Like, like I am everyone's, because being in emergency medicine, we know about everything, right? So we know about the bones and the eyes. And so I'm like everyone's consult for when things happen. So I've consulted for like less emergent things. My neighbor hit his hand with a hammer and like what is wrong with his fingers during COVID. He had to get a little splint for his finger, so my other neighbor, their daughter fell and I went over there and I was like, yes, her wrist is definitely broken because it looked broken, and then there's definitely times where I've had to sort of like turn it on quickly where, you're out somewhere and someone faints, you're out somewhere and someone has a traumatic injury. And I'm usually like pretty good about it. It's a little harder sometimes after you've had like a cocktail.
A little bit. But I mean, do you deal with telehealth at all?
I don't do any telehealth.
Which is interesting because I feel like other day I was like not feeling well and I was like, let me call my doctor, and they're like, oh, we'll call telehealth. It's like, oh, you feel okay? Here's a pill, done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is way better. Even though we should go see our doctor.
Yeah.
I like it because it's like I don't have to wait. It's a phone call.
Yeah.
But you're a little bit different.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different situation. There is like a little bit of telehealth in emergency medicine, mainly for screening patients. So when patients come in, most emergency departments now will do what's called screening, where like you talk with them for like a few minutes, figure out what testing they need. And sometimes that's done via telehealth. And there's a lot that we can do, by looking at people. There's all sorts of cool technology you can do nowadays where, you can like listen to people's organ, like you can listen to hearts and lungs, like the technology is amazing and probably will only get better over the years. But for the most part, like most of the care I give is in the emergency department. But I'm all for, like, if I have to call my doctor and it's not something I need to go there for, I'm all for a telehealth visit. Absolutely.
On a little more like serious part, because we talked about this, COVID. Was there ever a moment during COVID you were like, I can't do this anymore? Because we lost a lot of health professionals after this.
Yeah.
After COVID, a lot of people were like, I can't do this anymore. I saw too much death. You were the front line, so kudos to we salute you for what you've done.
Yeah.
And you're still in the profession. Mentally, how did you get through that? I mean, like the world's never seen anything like that. Were you nervous coming home to your kids that possibly that you could get them sick?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about like you, because you're still in the game, but a lot of people left.
Yeah,
nurses were
a
burnt
lot
out,
of nurses. A lot of nurses left. It was really hard, and it was hard because everything was changing so quickly. The science was changing so quickly. The medicine was changing so quickly. I was very fortunate to always have and be provided like appropriate PPE by my job. So I always had like a gown, a mask to wear, something to cover my eyeballs. It wasn't always the most comfortable thing or the most ideal thing, but it was always a thing that was given to me that I had access to. So I was very appreciative of that. The other thing that happened when COVID started is we also had to reinvent medical school because there were all these people still in school. And because of my role within the medical school, we had to figure out how to still continue to educate the students. So and no one had ever heard of Zoom at the time.
Right. You're right.
So we really, we had to figure things out so quickly for that and how to kind of keep things moving in that front and create some sort of learning experiences for the students, all along with still continuing to work my clinical work.
I don't know how you did it.
And then my husband works in infection prevention, which the main job is to prevent people from getting like sick in the hospital, getting like hospital infections from one another. So we were both like on the front lines. We were both people who had to leave our homes for our job, and we were very much an island because no one wanted to be around us, right?
Absolutely
we were
not.
around other people.
Absolutely
I was
not.
caring for COVID patients, and your whole support system kind of crumbles, and we had young kids. We were very appreciative again for our neighbors in our neighborhood. You know, Baltimore is like built of neighborhoods, and our neighbors really like kept us afloat at the time and were instrumental. I think we were all instrumental in kind of keeping each other sane and and well, and you know, the kids just outside, and we would like sit outside and just try and be 6 feet apart and do our best. But it was scary. I would get home from work. I would take off all my clothes in my garage. I would
Yep.
go right into, we have a shower in our basement. I went like right into the shower. I would like scrub my whole body. I would wash my hair fully.
Right.
My husband would do the same when he got home from work. We had very clean hair.
I mean, what a time to be alive during that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, what a time just to go through something. I mean, you're probably like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
When I went to medical school, this was not what I signed up for.
I mean, you never thought you were going to be like putting yourself at risk. I mean, everything you do in life is a risk.
Right.
You know,
Correct.
you learn that as you get older, particularly my job, you learn everything you do in life is a risk. But you never thought that like you would be putting yourself that much at risk every day when you went to work. And yeah, it was really like, it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I remember like I had to go to the hospital and everybody's like, that's where COVID's at. Don't go there.
Yeah.
And I like was like, oh, I'm just not gonna go. Like I just was
Yeah.
like, I'd rather suffer it out.
So
And
when everything was first happening in New York, the hospitals
that
were like
was-
inundated and it was crazy.
Oh,
and,
man. Oh.
But here it hadn't quite like hit yet. And we actually had like days where the ED was like empty, like eerily empty.
Was that
very early on?
It
was
felt like people were like,
well, no one would go anywhere because they were like,
it's there.
COVID is in the ED.
right.
So we saw a lot of people like delaying care for other issues.
Right.
We saw like and still are, interestingly enough, saw very severe like alcohol withdrawal, overdoses for opioid use were up. You know, people were like at home and had like nothing else really to do to occupy their time. And then like as time went on, things got like not stranger and stranger, but like more and more contentious, and more political
Right.
as things went on with vaccination and who was vaccinated and who wasn't. And it was that was actually the stage that was hardest for me when everyone just seemed to be like angry or scared.
Right.
You know, like the
right.
people who were anti-vaccination and would come in and they would be sick and they would be like denying it and angry. And, you know, we saw people leave the hospital basically because they didn't believe they were sick with COVID to essentially go home and die.
Wow.
And other people on the flip side were very sick and were like, I've done everything right. Why am I sick? And, you know,
It's a lot of emotions.
it was a lot of emotions.
Like
It was
I can hear it in your voice when you're telling
was a
this,
lot.
Thinking about going back.
Yes.
I
A lot
was-
of tears in the car.
I remember.
A lot of-
What was it? It was late February, early March. I always remember because March 13th or 15th. It was the 13th or 15th. But like a week before, I went to the pediatrician with my kid, and I walked in there, and everybody had a mask on, and I was like, and I was like, doctor, why do you have a mask on? Oh, I just have a cough, and I'm like. And everybody had one, and I was like, you heard about it, but
Yeah.
you were like,
Yeah.
and I was looking at her like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
then literally 2 weeks later, the world shut down.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're fortunate to be living through, we've made it through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I know didn't make it through.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
What has your perspective of your job changed since then? You might have different perspective. I'm curious because you
Yeah.
went into it differently. Your perspective has your whole thing has changed. Has to be because
Yeah.
there's no way you look at things the same way now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone really looks
We
at
don't.
things the same anymore. You know, I think people's perspectives on life have just sort of changed a little bit, right? Our learners' perspectives have changed and how we digest information and how we like to learn. I think that's changed a lot. I think that our job, like, I think from like a medicine perspective, something good that sort of has come out of this is I think we have kind of shown and initially I think this was a little bit more, but like our value within the healthcare system for sure. You know, I think I think medicine is really hard right now, but mainly because I think medicine is very broken. I think that like our healthcare system and insurance companies and all the time, like we just care for patients who don't have health insurance, who can't get proper care. who sort of live in this like middle zone where like they can't afford health insurance, but they make too much money to get some sort of medical assistance program. So they live in this like middle zone. And it's hard as someone who provides healthcare to help people when the system that like you're working within isn't being helpful. And emergency medicine, again, has changed so much over the years, and medicine has changed a lot as well, recognizing that we really need to help these people when they come to the emergency department. So when I was a resident, someone would come in and they wouldn't have health insurance, and I'd be like, here's your papers, good luck. And there were no services that we would give them. And now most emergency departments have case managers, have social workers who can help with those issues, with helping people get follow-up. Social work can help people figure out how they can get insurance and what they qualify for with payment for medicine. So we're recognizing that we can all do our part to like help our very broken healthcare system. And it's good for patients. We have peer recovery coaches in the emergency department who talk with people about like substance use disorders, people who have had experience with substance use disorder and going through rehab. And they're an incredible resource to us as providers and physicians, and to our patients, more importantly, who can really help them navigate all of that. So I think emergency medicine and medicine in general have done really a good job about sort of like stepping up to the plate. And I think we've all sort of taken a little spin to focus as best as we can on our well-being and what that means. And in medicine, so much of what was historically done is like the administration would say like, you should go do yoga, or we're going to buy you pizza. But really, like, I mean, it's true. Like, everyone jokes around and is like, the emergency department is imploding. Oh, the department bought us pizza, which is nice, right? You don't have to think about what you're going to eat for lunch, but it doesn't fix the problems.
Oh my goodness. So true.
So I think we're trying to really, fix things, even though that's really hard to do.
Do you think technology's changed for the good?
To a certain extent.
Okay.
I mean, I think in medicine as a whole, telehealth is really helpful for people who can't make it out of their homes, who can't make it places. I think AI will be really instrumental in healthcare as things move forward.
Okay.
And there's a lot of research that's going into like how AI can be most helpful.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm not an expert at all in AI.
Is a whole different, because AI is it's different. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie iRobot. I'm good. I've seen it. I don't need to know it.
Yeah.
But
it's coming. That technology is coming, and we are going to need to figure out how we can harness it for good within medicine. And I always say in emergency medicine, I feel secure in my job because there is some protocol to what I do, but like there's someone that needs to be there, and patients a lot of times don't present in a classic way. So they're, it's not like, oh my God, I'm having crushing chest pain. It's like my jaw hurts. I'm a little sweaty. You're having a heart attack, right? AI can't always figure that out. So I need to be there. But the people like radiology, a lot of the things that can be very protocolized, there's a lot of discussion or concern that AI could really take over some of what they do.
That's job's gone.
Yeah.
It's AI's different. It's me different. We're going to come back to a podcast on that. So AI.
I'm not an expert on that, but I'm sure I can find you someone that is. AI in medicine in particular, there's people looking into that all the time. Yeah.
I love it.
But I think there's some good that can come of it with like so much of what we do is documentation and orders. And I think that we can potentially harness AI to help us with those things. And that's already happening for some people, where they go in the room and they talk to their patient and they have a program running. And then that program can then turn that into a note, which is really helpful for people because then you don't have to sit at your computer and type for 5 to 7 minutes, what happened in the room.
Facts.
So.
Facts. You're right. You're definitely right about that.
So I think there is some good, and I think there's also definitely a little bit of scary.
Yeah, a little scary. It is a little scary. Tell us about your running. You hear the health. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get running, and why do you like running marathons?
Oh, so let's take the S off the end of marathons. Marathon. So
okay,
I ran one marathon,
okay.
and I may not be a repeat marathoner.
Okay.
How did I get into running? I think it's, I always have liked doing exercise, and for me it's very much for my mental health that I exercise, so it helps keep my kind of brain well. And I used to do a lot of like spin classes. I used to go to the gym, and then kind of as things evolved, I got a Peloton at home. And then I just started running more, and I like the fact that it's challenging for me. It's hard, like running is hard for me. And I know that sounds silly. Like it's probably hard for a lot of people, but some people it comes really naturally. Like there's people who can like get out there and they're like, I haven't run in a year, and they run like a 9-minute mile. Like that's not me.
No, but that's fine though.
I like that it's hard and that it's challenging and that you can see yourself getting better. And I'm sort of out of a training cycle right now and not really training for anything. I did a marathon with I'll call her my best running friend. She's a very good friend as well. Heidi Daniel, who is CEO of the Pratt Library, who is just in the process of transitioning to Seattle. So I'm very sad. So if anyone's looking for a best running friend, hit me up. I'm in the market for a new best running friend. But I had talked about doing a marathon for a long time. And my kids, who everyone says this was mean, they said this to me, but we're this kind of family. I was talking about it in the car one day, and they said, Mom, you just need to do this before you get too old.
Okay.
And I was like, they probably have a little bit of a point. Okay. Not getting any younger. And it's one of those things where we just committed, and Heidi had already done a marathon, and we signed up for the Marine Corps Marathon last year in 2023, and we did all of our training, and it was hard. It's hard to... The main thing, because I'm not a very fast runner, is finding the time to do training runs. So to run 20 miles takes me about 4 hours. And it's many people who are listening now don't have an extra 4 hours in their day, right?
No,
and it makes you a little, like the training, I think makes you, like you have to be intense to do it.
Right.
Or you have to be invested and have like some sort of intensity. I did a training run on a summer morning where I went out. It was like a little drizzly, fine. I was like a little wet. And then I was running. I got stung by a bee. But I was like, I have to keep running. I have to get my miles. And like, it makes you a little crazy.
Wow. That's serious. That's serious. I don't run. So I respect it.
And I am so proud that I did the marathon. I had done some like a half marathon and like a longer race in the year before. And then I'm so proud I did the marathon. I'm not sure I will repeat. It was very, very, the training was hard logistically. And then the run itself was really hard for me. And I think it gets easier the more you do. Because I think on your first one, you're like, will I make it to the end? You know, will I actually be able to cross the finish line? I think is like the first one you do. And then I think after that, when you're like, oh, I crossed the finish line once, I can do that again. I think mentally it gets a little easier each time. But I definitely sat down at mile 20, fully sat. I stretched a little bit. There may have been a few tears shed, but I got myself up and I crossed the finish line. And it was a little slower than what I wanted to do, but it's done. It's like checked off the bucket list.
You did it.
So I feel good that it's checked off, and who knows what's next in my fitness journey. I've debated training for like a short little triathlon, but I need to relearn how to swim. So we'll see.
Well, Doc, I appreciate your time today. I learned the emergency department today. I learned that today. One thing I walk away with it, do not call it the ER no more. It's ED, okay, folks? But thank you so much for your time. Like I tell people, you can't get time back. And I really want to do this interview just to educate people a little bit about who you are and what you got going on, and salute you for what you've done and what you did for us during COVID, during the pandemic, because it's very important to highlight people that are doing great things that we may not hear about, but you were on the front line, seeing people come every day, and you're out there doing what you're doing. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. That's very kind. It's just a job, but I'm proud of the work that I do.
All right, folks. Before you leave, we're going to the speed round. We're not letting you out.
Oh, okay.
We're not letting you out.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
If we jumped in your car right now, what music will we be listening to?
Oh, goodness. What is on? I want to say it's probably Coffee House.
Okay, nothing wrong with that.
It might be 80s on 8, though. I don't know.
Your favorite concert you've ever been to, music concert?
Ooh, that's a great one. I'm going to say that my favorite concert was Ben Folds 5 with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra.
Okay, Ben Folds.
Ben Folds,
I like
because
Ben Folds.
It's incredible. He I don't know if you've ever been to one of those, but he like composes a whole song in front of the audience with the orchestra, and I was just blown away. I think he is musically incredibly talented.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you went to a restaurant right now with your family, what was the first thing you get off the menu? It could be anything.
Oh, I'm like an Italian food pasta gal.
Okay.
Give me the Italian food, pizza. It's the Long Islander in me. I think like I need Italian food.
What's your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? I'm going to say July 4th. My wedding anniversary is July 3rd.
Okay.
And I love the summer. And I just love kind of the relaxed nature of 4th of July and being able to chill at the pool and spend time with friends. We'll say July 4th.
Crabs or crab cakes?
Depends on the day and the weather. I'm all for cracking crabs, but I have to say I get bored after about 4. My husband, because he's a Baltimore person,
yeah.
he'd do it all day. And so on a nice day, sitting outside, I'm all for cracking crabs, but a crab cake is so convenient, particularly a good crab cake.
Facts. Well, thank you again. You're off the speed round. That's all. I always put that in. I always sneak it in. But thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
All right, folks. Love, peace. We're out.
Never seen so many